Hello from Fiorano or Maranello, dear Motorsport-Magazin friends and Formula One fans. Where the season began for us is also where it ends. This is where the SF23 was presented and completed its first laps behind me on the Ferrari test track in Fiorano. Now Ferrari has invited us to the traditional Christmas party with team boss Fred Vasseur here to review the season with us. What did he say? It was his first Ferrari season, always particularly exciting of course, and he was a bit surprised because what he was promised at Ferrari in a negative sense didn't really materialize. You always know it from Ferrari. They actually start the season quite well and then it gradually goes downhill, and Fred Vasseur thought to himself, oh God, if it starts like this in Bahrain and in Saudi Arabia, and that was supposed to be the best part. But no, exactly the opposite was the case. It wasn't a great season, not by any means, no, but it got better, and that was the good news for him in his first season as Ferrari team principal, that they were able to improve, that they took a more aggressive approach at the end of the season and were able to improve, especially operationally at the track. That was definitely positive for him, including the image of Ferrari that is otherwise painted with all the intrigue. You've probably heard our videos with Roger Benoit, what he says about Ferrari. Vasseur says it's not that bad. The pressure is no greater than elsewhere. He knows it from smaller teams. There you had the pressure to survive. There the pressure came from within. Here it comes more from outside. It's also pressure, but it's a different pressure. Of course, there was also a lot of looking ahead, and it will of course be exciting with the driver contracts. Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz are at the end of their contracts in 2024. There is still time, but Fred Vasseur has already let it be known that the aim is to do something about the contracts before the start of the season next year. So a super contract season, super silly season and so on, it looks as if one or two things will be sorted out before then. And we already know when we might be back here next year. The presentation date has been set. It's the first launch date for the 2024 Formula One season. It will be on February 13th, and I'm curious to see whether Ferrari will put on another grand presentation like the SF23. That was really gigantic, you have to say, with a driving car here, also in front of many, many fans. Fred Vasseur was a little more cautious about the targets than in the past. He said, "We want to improve." For us, that's always boring. When we hear something like that, improving can mean anything. But of course, he has become a little more cautious in this respect. Nevertheless, the goal for Ferrari, as we all know, must of course be the World Championship. Thank you very much for this excellent contribution from Maranello, Christian. Now let's jump in time and place from Maranello to Spa and go back to 2022. I'm sure you all remember the press conference at the Belgian Grand Prix. Formula One on one side, FIA on the other, and then Audi in the persons of Markus Duesmann and Oliver Hoffmann, the then CEO of Audi and the head of development. And it was announced that Audi would be joining Formula One for the 2026 season. Officially, nothing has ever changed since then, but of course the general conditions have changed somewhat since then. The economic situation is completely different, and things have not necessarily improved for car manufacturers in particular in recent years. There are also some internal problems at Audi. The market launch of a very important model series has been repeatedly postponed. This was also one of the reasons why Markus Duesmann had to leave his post prematurely. Gernot Döllner has officially been chairman of the board of management of Audi AG since the 1st of September, and the question then clearly arises as to whether to continue with everything or not. On the one hand, of course, you have to take the economic conditions into account in this reassessment, and of course, new personnel always means a reassessment. This was reported in Der Spiegel, but there was no official word from Audi, as they never said that the Formula One project was even in question. Now, just over 100 days after taking up his post, Gernot Döllner has officially spoken out in public for the first time. He said the following about Formula One: "The plan is in place." Gernot Döllner said in an interview, in his first interview with Handelsblatt. He also said, "There is a clear decision from the board of management, from the supervisory boards of Audi and Volkswagen, that Audi will enter Formula One in 2026. However, the matter was actually reassessed. There was a supervisory board meeting at Audi on November 22nd. The whole topic was chewed over again. And on December 14th, i.e. last Thursday, there was another extraordinary supervisory board meeting at parent company Volkswagen. We heard that Formula One was also discussed there, and it's still not completely off the table because after the extraordinary supervisory board meeting at the parent company Volkswagen, There will also be an ordinary supervisory board meeting. This will take place on December 18th, i.e. tomorrow. Then the whole issue should finally be off the table. Then a line will be drawn under all discussions. After all, the question of whether or not to get involved has to be answered as quickly as possible. Why? Sure, they have already invested hundreds of millions of euros. If they wait even longer to make a decision and then say we're not going to do it after all, they will burn even more money. So the times in Ingolstadt, in Neuburg, in Hinwil, and also in Wolfsburg, they get a little quieter at Christmas, and of course you're still looking for the perfect Christmas present for your loved ones during this quiet time. But now things are getting a little tight, and I have some bad news for you. If you want these beautiful vouchers, you'll have to print them out yourself, so it probably won't be possible to send them by post before Christmas Eve. That's why you still have the opportunity to secure these vouchers at gutschein.motorsport-magazin.com. The link is, of course, also in the video description. And then to be on the safe side, you just have to click on print at home. Then you pay 49 euros and have the perfect Christmas present for a year. That means 6 issues, more than you have here on the table, of your favorite motorsport magazine. 6 times joy for the recipient, and not just once on Christmas Eve. Quiet, contemplative time. Not necessarily at the FIA. Things are getting really busy again. Of course, you've heard what's been going on over the last few weeks about the president, about Toto Wolff, about Susie Wolff, a statement and so on. But it continues. A bit of trouble is now coming from another direction, namely from Jean Todt. He gave an interview to our colleagues at L'Equipe and talked about a few things that he didn't quite like about the new president. Among other things, Mohammed Ben Sulayem complained after taking office that the finances were in a bit of a mess, that the FIA had recently been losing 20 million a year. And this situation was not clear in terms of the financial situation of the World Automobile Association. Jean Todt has countered this. No, just the last 2 years of the pandemic. Yes, things didn't look so great financially then. But otherwise, since he took office in 2009 and up until the handover in 2021, he greatly increased the FIA's assets as president. In 2009, when he took over, there were only about not even quite 40 million euros in the account. Now it is said to have been over 250 million euros. In addition, the company has also positioned itself well elsewhere with options for Formula E shares and real estate and so on. So he's not going to take that lying down. Of course, the FIA has spent a lot of money because it has grown over time. He has admitted that, but other things such as the FIA Action for Road Safety campaigns or the campaign for affordable and safe helmets for motorcyclists and scooter riders were not decided by him. Those were separate commissions that he didn't even sit on. Of course, they then spent the money, but it is said that Mohammed Ben Sulayem sat on these commissions and not Jean Todt, the president of the former team. Now, however, Mohammed Ben Sulayem has turned off the money tap. FIA Action for Road Safety no longer exists. The campaign doesn't exist either. But these are not the only adjustments that Mohammed Ben Sulayem has made. No, he has also ensured that money is saved at the FIA in other ways. But that was not the only thing that President Mohammed Ben Sulayem criticized when he took office. He then said that there was also a lawsuit about Halo. Patent rights from the USA were apparently infringed. He inherited that from Jean Todt. Jean Todt says, yes, that's true, but there was a presentation. At the time, the World Motorsport Council and the Senate were informed about the problem. There was a presentation. Mohammed Ben Sulayem also attended this presentation. So he knew what he was getting himself into. It was all documented. The matter has since been shelved, but of course it cost some money again. And then in 2021, immediately after the handover of power, there was another situation in Abu Dhabi. You may remember it faintly. The race director at the time, Michael Masi, is no longer in office. And Jean Todt made it clear that if it had been up to him, things would probably be different today. He did not fire Michael Masi. He gave him the opportunity to justify and explain himself. It was then the new president's decision to fire Michael Masi. He didn't say that he couldn't understand it completely or anything else, but he did say that Michael Masi was a good employee or is a highly qualified employee. It can just happen that you lose a world championship in the last race. He didn't want to put the burden of what happened on Michael Masi's shoulders, but of course, he didn't have to make any more decisions. Formula One, the FIA, was in crisis after Abu Dhabi in 2021, and Mohammed Ben Sulayem didn't just fire Michael Masi. He also tried to improve the system. He introduced 2 race directors and the remote operation center in Geneva. Now there is only 1 race director, but the remote operation center still exists. So this was not a campaign against Michael Masi, but an attempt to improve the system. So much for the FIA, old president versus new president. Now, however, we also have some more pleasing plans. Formula One apparently wants to move to Madrid, as has been leaked more and more in recent days. The official announcement should actually have been made a long time ago. The Grand Prix is due to take place for the first time in 2026. But there is a bit of a spat between Formula One and the FIA. The president of the FIA Senate told us that he is also the president of the Spanish Motorsport Authority. And he said that he heard about it in the media. He himself comes from Madrid and actually thinks it's wonderful. But the actual procedure would be to approach the National Motorsport Federation in Madrid, homologate the track and so on. Then the FIA also comes into play when it comes to the Formula One racing calendar. But he hasn't heard anything officially about this. This is, of course, a hidden criticism towards the commercial rights holder, who is, of course, looking to see where they can get how much money and which race would appeal to the commercial rights holder. Of course, there has already been talk about how much money can flow in, how the track can look, but the FIA is not yet involved. I'm curious to see how that will continue. As I said, it's long overdue. It should have been announced a long time ago. And then, of course, there is the question of what will happen to the Spanish Grand Prix. There may even be 2 races in Spain in 2026, because let's not forget, Barcelona still has a contract. However, things could look completely different in 2026. I'm curious about that. Of course, it's also a very tricky story domestically with Catalonia, Barcelona and Madrid. So I'm curious about that. All in all, another street circuit, a semi-permanent street circuit. What do we think of that? That's exactly what I was discussing with our editor-in-chief, Stefan Hüblein, right next to me on this couch. And I would be really pleased if you would not only watch the discussion video, but perhaps also subscribe to the talk channel on which it is shown. Because then we might soon manage to break through the 10,000 subscriber mark on the other channel.